you know, trying to get one of the tests is put a log file into the editor and record the log file,
Mhm.
and you should compare the two, and they should be identical. So
Mm.
the packets, as they come in, they should be logged. But I was dropping packets. I was packets were coming out of order, and it was partly my implementation, but the dropping of packets and also the dropping of command packets, it forced me to put in some debug code. Um, and what I found was that you have this hardware serial interface.
Mhm.
If you put in, um, and the way you know, it's one of those things where you're debugging software, but you have to guess at what the hardware is, how the hardware is implemented,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
For example, the hardware serial interface. So, for example, if I'm putting in a PVT packet into the serial interface, that's 100 bytes. I figure
Mhm.
the serial interface can handle that. Um, but what happening is when you put in a packet like that, the your receiving side of that serial interface pauses for that whole 100 bytes and drops packets. And
Mm.
drops bytes, and then the
Mhm.
packets get corrupt and they get lost. Um, so what was interesting to me is that there's two state machine. There's one state machine for both the serial output and the serial input. And if that state machine gets too busy on one side and the other side is receiving data, it that data is going to get, going to lose bytes. So
So you made a
that's what
buffer
was
for
going
it, or
on.
what?
And
You, you,
I wound up having to build a test case to isolate. It's like, is it really the serial send 100 bytes? You could send even in the command, you could say, all right, send the header, send the body of the packet, and send the tail. Just breaking it up like that. Um, the the other side, the receiving side, doesn't get corrupted. It has enough breaks in those. Um, and so and the it was difficult to debug because it was intermittent, and
Mhm.
I didn't understand why it was intermittent. And then I started peeling it back and saying, well, this nav stat packets are can be really big, can
Mhm.
be 200 bytes or more, and it was always happening with those.
Mm.
So, oh, Louis here.
But how did you
Good
solve it
morning.
then?
Just wait for
Good
Louis to get
morning,
on.
Louis.
I'm just saying good morning. I just woke up very, very late night. We just got to bed around 4.
Morning,
Oops.
Louis.
Yeah, yeah, it was a airport pickup.
Wow.
Oh.
Anyway, carry on. Don't let me interrupt.
But how
Wow.
did you solve it,
I was saying,
Michael?
like I said, rather than sending a byte, rather than sending a packet on the, I would say, Louis, the issue was that the I was having this issue with drop packets and corrupt packets, and I started putting all this debug stuff, and then I found out that if I an entire um, uh, uBlocks packet, like a navsat packet, which is 200 bytes or more, I send that packet out, that the receiving side of that serial interface where I'm getting commands back, that's corrupted. And I'm like, okay, what I finally realized that, it's just and I did guess that's probably one state machine that's handling both sides. So you can't send too large a packet of data because the state machine has got to handle the receiving side at the same time. So the solution was to just send the pieces of the packet. Even in line, I can say, all right, send the header, send the message ID, send the message class, send the body of the packet, send the checksum individuals. Just doing that solved the problem. I had to,
Mm.
in order to, figure out, make sure that I was dealing with this, that I had it understood correctly, as I do most cases to prove that out. And that was the issue. So now the emulator is working really well, and the logging part. So there were pieces of code on both sides that needed to be cleaned up, so that packets weren't getting sent out of order. I no longer rely. I always thought that the packets should come in a certain order, but they sometimes don't. So the if you have enabled PVT status and SAT packets, um, you don't necessarily always get them in and the SAT packet only comes once every 10. It's
Oh,
by our specification.
right.
Um, so now you get this CSV file that is really uh, something that you can analyze. And I'm looking at data, and I'm seeing one of the reasons whenever you see something that marked off and then snaps back, it's from what I'm seeing in the CSV file, it's just you've gone down to three or four or five satellites, all with low signal to noise ratio, and then so you basically lose, so it wanders off very
Mhm.
quickly, and it's measurable. The only thing I wish I had at the same time is the for every navsat, it would be great to have a picture of the satellite um, location of the satellite
Mm.
map,
The constellation, yeah, the map. Mm.
um, to as an illustration of what's going on. Um, yeah, the constellation map.
Mm.
Um, in that CSV file, I can't really put them in there, but
Well,
um,
maybe you could put something a little bit
yeah. I also
reduced
was wanted to
information.
look. The next thing I was going to try to do was figure out how to use.
Okay, I think I lost.
Right. Yeah.
See, no,
Yeah, I
for
can add if I add right now I just have the satellite name. Oh, you broke up, Louis. Or maybe I broke up
You broke up.
no, I was just
and he's muted.
okay.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
could send the
Michael. Yeah, just a thought about that. Having a map
yeah,
for every. You simplify it and just have for every satellite just the azimuth? Because we know that if it's directly overhead, then the signal is probably going to be less distorted from the ionosphere. Whereas if it's low on the horizon, then it's going through a lot more ionosphere and getting distorted. So maybe just as a first
yeah, that's a
pass, just
great
a
idea.
very simplified,
Mm.
and it still meets the you know, just keeps the record in the CSV file to a reasonable length.
Right. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I can do that. Uh, uh,
Can, can you
it's
get the, sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
can you, from the satellites, can you, the lat and long, you can get the longitude and the latitude, but they're big for all the satellite. It's going to be tricky to put it all in there.
Sorry, I misspoke. It's
Yeah, I like Louis' idea
elevation.
with the azimuth
Mm.
as an
I
Azimuth is
understand.
this way, elevation is this way.
It's
I
different.
forgot my radar. I worked in radar for a few years.
Huh.
Elevation.
Yeah, I think I'll give that a try. But there are other reasons to have poor satellite reception, um, or incorrect satellite reception, such as reflections, bad weather, um, that sort of thing. So, but it would be interesting. So it's gonna now I can go and look at some of this data that we have recorded and replay it. I was saying to Rob that now you can put in a UBX log file and into the emulator, and then on the receiver side, it's a long way to, a copy. You can make a copy of that, exact copy of that in 1 hour. So
Oh,
4 hours
fantastic.
takes 4 hours. But do you know what I learned? A 19-hour recording, you can do that really fast on a computer, just by doing a regular copy.
That's true. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
So and you have your options of you can record all possible files, the GPX file, the KML file, the log file, and this CVT file. You can have them all in one pass if you wanted.
Okay,
It
but that's
doesn't
in the settings to set up
in the
which one you
settings, yeah, you
want.
can
Okay,
enable
okay,
yeah, you can
then I
enable
will.
all of them. Yeah, and
Wonderful.
I'm I'm looking at it's the loop time is basically the CPU busy
Hmm.
uh, is can be correlated to how busy the CPU is, and you don't want that loop time to go over like 200 milliseconds. Then you're starting to possibly interfere with with the next packet coming in. Um, so yeah, it's now looking good.
Exciting.
Wow, that's
That's
fantastic.
great. Nice, very nice work. I
Yeah,
will
it's
maybe tomorrow, if I have time, I will try it out. The
Yeah.
post, the latest code you pushed, I saw, so I will check.
right.
Yeah, that would be
Yep.
it'd be interesting to see what the setup in Japan is because you have those um,
Eight.
the yeah, that's right, the what they call the quasi-zenith system, sort of to see if in fact you're maintaining. I mean, right now, I mean, you're sort of you're not in a built-up area, but if you, for instance, if you had to make a trip into Tokyo,
Mhm.
then we could see all the reflections. And this week, I think I'm going into Toronto, so I'm gonna try to see what happens with reflections. I'm just gonna walk around downtown before going to my
Mhm.
visit my friends.
But in
Right.
my case, I'm in a valley, so my house, there are two mountains on the sides. So
Okay.
basically, when I'm home, it's quite hard. I mean,
Oh, I see. Okay.
so I have to get my GPS extender outside of the house to get some satellites.
Okay.
Right.
And I was wondering in the software if we have in the real-time mode, if we switch to at home, maybe we should just fix the GPS, not let it go around, because I noticed that sometimes it goes all the way around if there's not enough
Right.
strength of the satellite. But that's
Right.
probably something for Jello to do.
Well, that would be something that the user would, in the configuration would say, okay, um, basically tell the Zen that it is in a fixed location, so it doesn't try to guess. I
Yeah,
think,
if it's in a fixed location, then it automatically should use only that GPS coordinate.
yeah, but you have to tell it that it's in a fixed
Yeah.
location. Otherwise,
Mm,
well,
if it comes to a certain area and it wanders out, if it goes out of that area, you pick it up, the
but
satellite,
how,
and
Yeah,
then it.
but what if it
but
thinks it went out?
Oh, that's true.
yeah.
That's true.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
If
whole
it thinks
point.
it's far away, yes.
That's the
yeah,
whole point of this exercise is that we know, like now we can look at this, analyze this data and say, okay, you just left at 30 meters a second.
Mm,
You probably did
impossible.
not.
probably did
Yeah,
not, unless the user was
right,
very frustrated and pitched it out the
Threw it
window
out.
or something.
right. And now and that's just 1 second, and then you weren't moving. Then you
Yeah,
moved at 30 meters a second for 1 second, and then
all
you
the way
stopped
back.
moving again.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, or you didn't. or you've so that's the other the what I'm seeing when I look at these example, sample log files is it tends to wander off and then location becomes not valid. And then when it wakes up again, it's back in the original location. That's that's why so you'll see these very straight lines heading out and nothing. And what really happened is that that return was a single jump. When you went out when you went out, you got location invalid, so nothing's being recorded, and then oh, okay, now you're back.
But
So
sometimes I see that it's here a cluster, and sometimes only one is far away and then goes back. Really,
right,
it
but
jumps a few kilometers.
right,
It doesn't wander. Sometimes it
but
just
if you look
pop.
at the log, yeah, and that entire time it kept location valid.
Oh, I didn't check it.
Yeah.
I should check.
So I mean, so we're looking at. Yeah, that was what surprised me is that usually any of those jumps are immediately followed by location invalid, and then some recovery. Then after some, it could be a few seconds as to some
Mhm.
recovery time. Up, I'm back. Um,
Mhm.
so we're looking at, I think the way to use this data with, now that I record distance and um,
And heading.
what was it that I re
The
and
heading.
heading. Um, you could calculate from that impossible acceleration, right? And so then you could immediately say, all right, this data is definitely
Is
invalid. You
that
could even be on a plane and this is
true?
not going to happen. Um, so and that tends to
That's
be
true.
the
It,
way this thing works. So we're going to have to forget the spoofing indicator or whatever the features that uBlocks has and just do our own.
okay, great.
When you're looking at those log files, are you using the KML file on Google Maps or using QGIS with I'm not too sure what well, I guess you could read QGIS into or KML into QGIS.
Can also do. Yep. But you can use
I
the
just use
SD
go
card.
I just look at Google.
Google Maps or Google Earth. I think
I
lots.
use the KML file on Google
Mm,
Maps.
yeah.
Okay.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah,
I
I
can
just
hear
use the
you.
KML file on Google Earth.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
Mm,
on Google Earth. So that's it. Uh, but
mm.
that's just, but I don't even need to look at the map to see what's going on. I just look at this put the
The
CSV
data.
file into a spreadsheet and I'm just looking down the column and say, okay, here I go. 30 meters a second or 40 meters a second. And
Yeah.
what is it? What are my satellites doing?
Right. Okay. So is there a lag between like so you mentioned that it goes wandering off, and then you look at then the signal to noise or carrier signal to carrier drops, or is it that you see a gradual drop in the carrier to noise, and then all of a sudden it just disappears or wanders off? Like
Um, it
is there any sort of warning, like or like precursor to say, hey, what, we're going to have problems in the next in the next sample?
yes, so I think that's what I think that's it looks like there is some pre-warning where you're starting to lose satellites and the signal to noise ratio is dropping down. And then, um, and you could imagine that what's going on inside the u-blox processor is that the Kalman filter has a recovery time, has a reaction time that's
Hmm.
not small. I mean, I've worked with Kalman filters before, so it's not small. So yes, you looking at the raw satellite data, you can tell what's when it's coming. So we should be able to come up with an algorithm
Hmm.
for detecting that scenario. It's like, okay, there's a chance things are not, coming up. It's looking not good.
Like a weather forecast.
So
Or
That's
Yeah,
good. Great.
yeah. It's this whole thing was on my mind to be able to try to figure out this, and when I took that tangent to, I would actually make corrupt. I would edit the UBX log files and try to get the ublocks module to trigger a spoofing indication. No, I could
no?
never get it. That bit never moves.
Hmm.
Mm, that's interesting.
So
Like I'm just wondering if it's based on something at the RF level that it's detecting, or maybe sudden jumps in phase or something like that. Just that we have no idea, right? Because we're looking at the other end of at the output end of
right.
things,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Um, you're right. That's a possibility.
Yeah, but it'd be nice if they told us what it means.
Yeah.
But-
That's the interesting thing about the ublocks forum that they have
Hmm.
is, first of all, it's not manned by anybody, any employee. It's just people with more experience helping people with less experience,
Wow.
and it's all guesswork. It's
Wow.
like I think this is what's going on inside. Now, if you were working with the company on, for example, a mobile fleet of delivery trucks,
Hmm.
I'm sure you would get, um, you know,
Right.
some immediate, valuable feedback as to how your system should be put together and
Yeah.
operate.
Well, for all we know, they charge for that. It's like,
Oh, I'm
okay,
sure.
contract, contract to help you implement whatever system. Yeah.
Right. And some of the people in the forum, when they would get into those topics, they said, for this, if you're going to make a mobile fleet, you really need to just contact the company directly.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Well,
no,
we're not that stage.
I think we have enough. I think we're on the right track to be able to identify this, this signal quality issue,
Hmm.
and even potential spoofing or
Or
what's the other
interfere,
one?
just
Jamming or
jamming and
jamming.
Mhm.
interfere. Yep.
Yeah,
And
Wow.
right.
Louis,
Yeah.
you've been doing well, or you have
I've
time to
been
work on things?
not really because this is the last week of classes and I'm just catching
Okay.
up on marking. And I had a chat with the program coordinator. They've cut the colleges have been cutting all the Ontario colleges have been cutting programs. So and the program I was mostly teaching in has been cut. So I am probably not going back to teaching. Um,
Okay.
which is fine because when I go to a retiree breakfasts, and they look at me like I'm really weird. So maybe I should take the hint. It's like, what? You're still teaching? It's like, are you crazy? It's like, okay, well,
Yeah, well,
it's I mean, it's
enjoyable.
good beer. It's good beer money.
Mhm.
So,
Right,
Sure.
especially if you exp like expensive beer,
right.
but I
That's
think it's time to move on. So, yeah, so I should hopefully have a little bit more time.
okay. So, what thing do
Um,
you want to work on?
That's
What
that's
have
a
you
shame
planned?
though, cutting,
yeah.
courses that actually teach,
Well, it's just, I mean, if we can go offline, the situation is really messy. So if we're not recording this, we'll just have a little chit chat about that. And if you're at all curious, but it's kind of it's more mismanagement forensics. The the anyway,
Okay.
the yeah.
right?
Enough said. It's a mess. Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah. It's not something for this chat. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
c coming back to Rob's question,
Yeah.
what am I doing now? Well, that's certainly at this point, now that we've got all this logging available, I think I'm just going to do some logs and start just toying with, like how could we, just understand the data, which is and try to come up with a little bit of a figure of merit or predictor to say, yes, we're going to knock out this particular GPS reading, or maybe interpolate between, you know, um, you between, like invalid, and then we have, wandering off and snapping back, and then valid again, and we just kind of interpolate, or you know what, just knock them out. Just,
Mhm.
I think that's the easiest, is just knock out those readings, um, just because if we can't trust it. And
True.
the way I'm looking at it is to maintain the integrity of the database. In other words, that when you pull out a data point, you can trust it.
Mhm.
I think that to me is kind of like mission critical.
I think so too. Okay.
We're down to 10 minutes, according to
Yes,
Mr.
I
Zoom.
saw. And the setup around Pickery is okay now. It's kind of
Uh,
stable, looks like.
it seems to be stable. I still have to visit my friend to update his cast,
Mhm.
or the firmware in the Nano. Um, the And now again, have more time. I'm just going to start reaching out to people, and just talking the idea through. Nothing formal,
Mhm.
but there's a group of ENGOs, environment NGOs, who are concerned with basically the nuclear build out that's been announced. There's one in particular that's been working very heavily in uh, with the Nuclear Licensing Authority, the Canadian National Secure National CNSC, Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. That's it. Um, Intervening in their licensing hearings, specifically on evacuation plans. So they're interested in the project. They have no money. There's another one called the Ontario Clean Air Alliance, which is basically pushing for renewables over nuclear. So they're interested, but they have no money.
Mhm.
Interestingly, they sponsored the Nano that is now at my friend Dave's
Ah,
place.
okay. That's
They
nice
just
to hear
did
that.
it was just a little bit too technical with the SD cards and everything,
Mm.
that they just said, well, we're not really using it. What do you want to do with it? And they passed it on.
Mhm.
Um, There's a few other organizations. Again, the problem is, of course, is money. So right now it's a
I
matter,
think
like,
so too.
as a phase one is to find willing hosts for these devices, and they just put them in the window and plug them in, and
Mhm.
hook them up to their Wi-Fi. Um,
But
but
I think basically you can use Pickery as a sample that you already made something that you can show. I mean,
yeah, well,
that's the whole idea.
I want to talk about Pickering and Darlington,
Okay.
because it's kind of one big build out. Uh, Pickering is a concern because it's a very old reactor. It's over 50 years,
I mean, it's
right?
next to Toronto.
And well, that too,
That's
that
very
too.
scary.
That is very scary. It is the closest to a built-up area ever. I
Mm.
think the other one is that Michael was talking about, is Indian Point,
Mm.
um,
True.
and then n nowhere else in the
That will
world did they.
never be restarted.
Yeah,
No.
okay. So
Yeah,
so
that
yeah,
will
that's
never be restarted.
good to know. Um,
I have to drop off.
okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh,
guys, I have to drop off so I can listen to the rest of this.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Uh,
Okay.
sorry about that.
no
No, no,
problem.
don't
All
So
right.
worry.
we're
Go
Have
almost
a
go
good
done.
go.
week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, Pickering is the concern because it's so old and so close to built up areas.
Mhm.
Pickering is of concern because, excuse me, Darlington is a concern. They're just doing the refurbishing, which is a kind of a euphemism for rebuilding the entire thing. Um, they basically take out all the tubes and replace them. Um,
Mhm.
but they're also building up. They're working on building up a boiling water reactor, like the American style,
Hmm.
except smaller. They call it a small modular reactor, but it's just as far as I can see, it's just
Scaled down version.
it's just a usual boiling water reactor, except smaller. Um, and but that's a completely new technology for the Canadian industry because they've been using the can-do design forever.
Mm.
Um, anyway, part of the effort is to raise new awareness about, like, hey, these things are not just, you know, um, you just raise awareness that this is happening,
Mm.
and it's
Yeah, that's
not,
important.
yeah, and it's not all sweetness and light. But as I mentioned many times before, the nuclear industry has done an excellent job of public relations.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so. Here in Japan too, it's the same.
Well,
Yeah,
part of that is that you have employees of
sure.
Ontario Power Generation, and when they talk about it, they talk to
They
the
still
the
work.
party line to their relatives and their friends, and just it basically it goes out organically, right? It's not
Hmm.
just a megaphone, like or TV commercials or anything like that.
No.
It's out in the community. So that is a politically sensitive way of approaching that. Um, um, anyway,
No.
so that's the kind of discussions I'm going to have with the various NGOs in the next few weeks,
Hmm.
and then sort of try to come up with a phased-in plan. I looked at your document, saw Goldberg's reaction to that, and that's good as well. So what I'd like to do is come up with a kind of a phase one plan,
Mm, that's a good idea.
and then kind of a like sort of a roadmap for for eventually. But I think at first, and we have to be sensitive to the political situation right now.
I think so. Yeah,
That
especially yeah. What's
yeah.
going on now with the elections coming up and
Well, yeah, we've got 2 weeks yet still for an election.
Mhm.
I'm probably going to get involved just as a volunteer, just because the uh, the member of parliament for the riding next to me is good friends of he's a very good friend of JD Vance,
I see.
so that's kind of worrying.
Yes, I
Um,
can imagine it.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Uh,
So
anyway,
so
must
good
go.
luck with that.
Thank you. All right,
Good.
so have a great week and
Yeah,
stay in touch.
yeah. And I will drop you things if I find things or I don't know.
Hmm.
And I am, by the way, I'm working on a replacement for the map for the Safecast map, and it's
Yeah, I
very
saw that.
primitive, but it's slowly coming. I have an idea, and it seemed to
Okay.
work.
Are
So
you
let's see.
I saw you have a repo for that.
Yeah.
Is that something I could try to replicate on my
Oh, sure.
server?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. It runs
Uh,
locally on my machine.
runs locally. Okay. So
It's still
okay.
very basic and some concept, but it's coming,
Okay. So,
and I will keep
I'll see if I
updating
can.
it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can replicate it here just to see if I can, if I notice anything glitching or something assumptions that work on your machine that doesn't work elsewhere,
It's true.
that kind of stuff.
It's basically a browser, so and
Yeah.
Ubuntu, so that should
Okay.
be fine. And
Okay. Cool.
it's still a work in progress. Huh? I mean, it's just a
Okay.
start. So there
Yeah.
are bugs. I know that they're around, but
Yeah.
they will
Now, are
fix.
you in Slack? Are you doing that in strictly in that conversation that we're having, or are you putting it elsewhere in the Slack?
No, that's all what they're doing. Not other places.
Okay. All right.
I'm active also in the Safe Pulse
Yeah, I saw
group.
that. Yeah.
So Alan and me are working on to get the simulation going, and we can test things out. And
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
that's in the
Uh,
private chat. But
okay. Cool.
okay,
All right. Have a good week.
So, yeah, you too.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.